Howdy, folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show for you. And with my co-host, David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers, who's feeling much better this week.
Oh, yeah. Greetings and blessings, my dear friends, and even those of you who aren't my friends. We greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator, and we continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from our creator. And so it's Tribal Tuesday. Thank you, Lucky.
Yes, Nina, the Mystic Truthers in the house. Remember to go over to her Streamlabs channel where they have special Milky Way merchandise. Join her over there on the Streamlabs. The link is right here. I am going to use that and pin that to the comments to the top. And as soon as I can, I don't know how to do this. But anyway, go over there and get your limited time offer of Milky Way Soul Tribe merchandise. There's some cool stuff over there, everyone, where you can get my smiling mug on your chest, your mug, or wherever you might like to see it at. So support the Milky Way tribe, support Nina. It's a good thing. We all got to lend a helping hand. And so with that, let's continue on with the show. Susie Q's in the house. Thank you for coming tonight. Love to see you all here for the Tribal Tuesday, as Lucky says. Anyway, we got a good show for you. We got a great story for you tonight. And we're still back on the Hopi. This will probably be the last week that, we are going to do the Hopi, the Zuni, the Navajo tribes. And then we're going to move on. We're going to be talking more about the Nez Perce, unless something really cool comes up. Channel Wars brings more subscriptions. So find a channel to hate for a few. Oh, yeah, I love it. I love it. Channel Wars bring more subscriptions. Find a channel to hate for a few months and then make up. Everyone wins. And then there's John Price, who's not here. Okay, you're not here. Anyway, with that, you just gotta get on, subscribe. Yes, subscribe to David's channel. He will be on hopefully tonight for a little bit. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, get on there. Just hit that button, hit the like before you leave, and it'll help me increase the algorithm and all that good stuff. We're up over 1,000 subscribers. We got a bunch of big things planned for the summer, and with that, we are just going to continue on with things. David, what do you got going on in your neck of the woods? Well, I prepare my stuff.
Oh, my neck of the woods is getting ready for eye surgery in a couple of months. And I've been to my urologist, and that's good news. I can still wee real good. I know that's TMI, but at my age, that ends up being a concern. So, but I hope all of you out there are healthy and wealthy and wise. I know there's a lot of confusion going on out there, and there are folks who are panicking every other day. And you need to sit down and take a chill pill, because some of this stuff that's going on needs some time. Things need time to work out in any situation that you live in. If you ask the Creator for some kind of blessing or something, if you think it's just going to go bang, you're wrong. It's going to take time. It might take days or weeks, months or years. But things have to work themselves out. So people are jumping up and down and wanting things to happen right away. Nothing ever works that way. So for those folks out there who are jumping up and down, calm down. You got to give stuff a chance to work itself out, whatever it is, whether it's the economy or this or that. Everything takes time in this universe to work itself out. So just stay calm for a while, give it a month, and then jump up and down.
That is so true.
You got to give it some time. You know, too many people want stuff to happen immediately, and you know, I'm sorry, but things in the real world don't really work that way. So be safe, my friends, and keep your patience. And if you don't have any patience, get some.
Yeah, exactly. He just says the market is crashing. Well, just have patience. It'll get to the bottom, and then it'll just go up from there. You know? And besides that, think of it this way. Remember that old song by Alabama where it says, we were so poor when the market crashed, we couldn't even tell? Well, when you're at the bottom and the market crashes, you'll just be so poor you couldn't tell. Right? So anyway, tonight we're going to start out talking about something, you know, the market crashes. Well, you might have to go backwards in time. There we go. Gaza Cab's in the house. Thank you for coming. Greetings, everyone. Can't stay long, but on a lunch break. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. Good deal. Tonight is our tonight. There you go. Good to see you. Anyway, tonight we're going to, well, since you're on your lunch break, we're going to be talking about a plant. And I don't know if they have them there over in Australia, but hey, we're going to be talking about a yucca plant. And that's how we're going to start out the show, talking about a yucca plant. Now, I don't know how many of you have seen a yucca plant, but they do exist. They are around. And
yucca.
Yeah, and if I can figure this out, oh, there we go. I'll tell you all about this yucca plant. There we go. Geez, my computer is, I had to reboot this thing today just before the show. So anyway, screen share, because nobody will know what a yucca plant. I love those plants, Nina says. I love those plants. Good evening, Chris Smith. Thank you for coming. Yeah, Witchy Moon has one in her backyard. Yep. Oh, they have yucca plants in Australia. And Susie Q has one. How about that? Good for you. Well, tonight we're going to be talking about that and a lot more. So what is a yucca plant? I've seen these plants before, but I really didn't know what they were. And they got these sword-shaped leaves. They're tall. They have these flowery stalks when they bloom. Some species grow like trees, like this one here. And they live and thrive in the desert, especially where these people live, like the Hopi and the Navajo, semi-arid environments, They're resilient and they require very little water. I suppose that's why they make it over in Australia really well. As you can see, they have these pretty leaves. I remember having, when I lived in Wisconsin, they had some of these growing along the roadside. I didn't know what they were. Well, you know what they use these things for? They make rope. You can make sandals and mats. It's the fiber in these crazy plants that they make all kinds of stuff out of. They make baskets from these leaves. They use these leaves and stuff. You can make soap and shampoo out of them. You always wondered how those people washed their hair and their body, and I bet you they didn't break out from all the chemicals that are in those soaps and shampoos either. It's all natural. So if you got one in your backyard, maybe it's something you could look up and make some soap. Apparently they would take this stuff and they would pound, the Indians, they would soak or pound leaves to release the fibers for weaving. And then they would make fishing nets and cords They crafted these into like durable items. The roots made in the shampoo, they would take that stuff after they have a natural, what do you call it? A soapy compound called a saponis. I don't even know. I hope I said that right, but you know me and my twisted tongue. They would crush these, they use the crushed roots, crushing them up, to make a foaming cleanser for their hair and their skin. And sometimes they used them in purification rituals, believe it or not. I guess with the pretty leaves, I guess that would be, or the flowers like that, that would probably be something I would consider a purification. That they just look pretty. Now the flowers and the fruit of some of the yucca plants, it varies, and they are edible. Flowers, you can take those flowers and you eat the flowers raw, or you can cook them. Now, the fruits that they had on them, you could have roasted them, they could be dried, or they could be even ground into flour, believe it or not. Now, not all species of these yucca plants are safe to eat, so, don't be going out there and just crushing up the flowers and eating them without checking, some handbook somewhere, because some of them are toxic, Now, some of these things can be used as medicine. It says, now I'm not no doctor, but I'm just reading what they're saying here. So just, you have to look it up. These were used in traditional remedies to treat like things like inflammation and joint pain. Who doesn't have some joint pain nowadays, right? All them chemicals and things we eat and sugars that we probably shouldn't be digesting. But they did use them for things like joint pain and skin conditions and digestive issues. Now, the Zuni, for example, they use these in ceremonial baths, believe it or not. And they could heal, they made poultices out of them, by doing something, squishing them up, and you could heal your wounds with that. So, like I said, before you do any of that, go out, check out your local yucca plant handbook before you start chopping up your yucca and put it in on your body or digesting it or something like that. But if you got the right one, you might be in luck. Now, in these yucca tradition or yucca, they were symbolic, for people. They used them in marriage ceremonies and coming of age. When you're coming of age, you put that in your hair or something, dance around a little bit. You're considered an adult. Kind of like Anyway. You know what I'm talking about. Don't the Jewish people do that, something, the coming of age thing? Anyway, there's also part of their sacred cleansing before the ceremonies and the dances. I suppose that's because it was like because it's like a soap, and they're pretty, I guess. Pretty much grow them anywhere. So that is our kind of small detailed story tonight of that. If you kind of wanted to know about that, I thought that was pretty interesting. What do you think of that? Have you got any yucca plants over there in
Georgia?
Yeah,
we got them, and landscapers, depending on the type of landscape, will use the yucca for landscaping.
Really?
In a way, it's sort of like a cactus, but not.
Yeah.
So because it lives in dry areas and so forth, it's cactus-like. So cactus taco. That's a good one. But yeah, they're used in certain types of flower beds. More if you've got a southwestern style of landscape going on. Folks will use them with rocks in the garden, and they'll have a yucca, and then they'll have a couple other, and maybe a cactus plant or two. So, but it depends on the type of landscape they want or what their garden looks like. But yeah, they are used in landscaping.
Huh, nice. Nice. That's pretty cool. Pretty darn cool. Well, like I said, I've seen them around. I didn't know what they were called. They probably people use them in their yards and stuff. I figured, especially once I seen these pictures and stuff, I'm like, well, yeah, I've seen those before. I didn't know what they were called, but I've seen them before. But it's important to know, the names of these, plants and things, because, someday that could be the meaning of life and death. Think about it. If the world goes to crap, you would love to have a yucca plant around so you can make some soap and wash your hair and body off. You know what I mean? You got to get back to the old time traditions if you can't go to the store and buy yourself some chemical ridden, lathering material that you can suds up and, wreck your skin and your hair and your body. Who wouldn't want that, right?
Right. Which brings up the thing that I was thinking about is where to find one. And a lot of times you find a yucca plant where an old homestead was.
Yeah.
Which brings up the idea, to me anyway, did the old timers know to put a yucca plant in so they could make soap?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, especially around here, there's a lot of stuff, but just offhand, I can't think of anything at the top of my head that makes a lathery soap. So, if there were folks that are like, "Hey, man, if you grow one of these, you can make your own soap." Well, the old timers did make soap with, ashes from the fireplace, and using lye. And they still basically use that now for soap, lye soap. But curiously, old homesteads where the house is gone and there's just some foundation post or whatever, there's a yucca plant sitting somewhere. Not everyone, but a lot of them.
Yeah. It's kind of like having a lilac bush. There was a house there when you can find a lilac bush, right?
Yep, and a lot of other ones too. Look for the Cherokee rose if you want to find an old homestead. There's a couple of old homesteads that had pomegranates growing.
Oh, really?
I was like, what? Yeah, pomegranate. So
nice. Yep, I know you can make soap out of. You got to use lard. Bacon grease would be the lard, and lye, and you can make soap out of that. But that's another way of making soap. I suppose if you use bacon grease, you'd smell like bacon too.
You'd smell like breakfast all day long.
Yeah. That smoky, smoked bacon kind of smell would probably be pretty good. Anyhow, the dog would like you.
And the wolves and the bears.
Yeah, exactly. Why is that dog always licking my skin? I can see it now. Oh boy. And what fun we get into here. Anyhow, we're going to be talking beef tallow would be better. Yes, beef tallow, it's kind of like lard. But like I said, it's all kind of the same. Okay, where are we going from here? We're going to be talking about the Navajo again. So, of course, we're going to get to, well, where did I want to start? I always got to start with some colorful dancers or something. You got to have some pictures in this, So that's where we're going to start. We're going to start there. And anyway, we're going to talk about the historical life of the 17th or 18th century Navajo Indian. Back in the day, well, remember in the 1600s, the Navajo moved from the Four Corners region. And of course, the Spanish came and they brought sheep with them and horses. So the Spanish contact dramatically transform these people and their way of life, because, if you got sheep, you got wool. The sheep eat little next to nothing. They eat the if you don't know what a sheep does, a sheep eats all the grass pretty much right to the ground level. Whereas goats, they like eat all the bushes. They will raise up on their hind legs and eat the tops of bushes and things like that, a little bit higher up grazing level. And like a horse or a cow, they kind of eat the middle of the grass, the tall stems. So you could bring your horse or cow through. They would eat a bunch of the grass, and then that sheep, they would gnaw that grass right to the freaking root, which kind of killed off the grass, which kind of made the cattle ranchers mad. I think that's why there was so much conflict between the cattle industry and the sheep, because the sheep would eat the grass right off to the root, and the cows didn't have anything to eat, and then the grass wouldn't grow back so fast, where the cows just ate, and they grazed and they moved, and they didn't, kill the plant right off. Anyway, what else happened during this time was the Spanish brought their implements, metal tools and woven clothes, horses and firearms, and this changed their society. It also helped their mobility because of the horse, and then it made them more powerful because they had weapons. Of course, like any other thing. This was also a difference because of frequent contact with the Spanish settlers. And then, of course, when you give them weapons, what happens? They had conflicts. The Navajo, being native to the area, and of course, what area are we talking about? We're talking about this kind of area. They had conflicts with the Spanish. They were great warriors, probably not as good as the Apache. But they, at some point in time, they did move around, and they were more territorial, versus where the Apache, they just roamed around and stole things and things like that. Now you also got the Hopi Indians, and they were contacted by the Spanish too. In the beginning, the Spanish tried to set up missions, converting them to Christianity, but they didn't really go for that. In 1680, they had this great Pueblo revolt, and then refused all missionary control, because the church was really getting in there, and being the Spanish, they inflicted Christianity with an iron stick, put it that way. We all know what that means. The Hopi life at this point in time in the 17th, 18th century was pretty much self-sufficient. It was centered around they had their clan-based, governance and terrace farming. Remember, they lived in all those pueblos on mesas. They grew the corn, the beans, the squash. We talked about that last week quite a bit. Growing corn that they still do to this day. We can go back to here in their gardens, and the three sisters, and you can see the corn in the background, and this is probably like a vine thing, like a squash or a melon or something like that. And of course, you got the sheep we were just talking about. Like I said, you can keep a lot of sheep in a small space. And then there's their corn, Indian corn. Who doesn't like the Indian corn? Anyway, they had their clifftop settlements. They're some of the oldest communities in the United States. They didn't move around as much. And of course, we don't want to fail to mention the Zuni who lived in that area. The the Zuni, they had the Pueblos again too. They were first contacted by the Spanish explorers, Coronado, in 1540. He came up through that area and made settlements. And during the 17th century, again, the missions tried to reach in and bring religion and structure and things like that. But, being in that area where they're at, they didn't get controlled quite as much. Let's see. And here we go with some of these Pueblos. And as you can see, there's just stones and put together with clay and ladders. And, you go through the top, well, this is a newer one. That's probably doors and stuff. You can see by some of the older ones. Yeah, go ahead.
Now, here you got Indians living in teepees all over the place. All over the place. Okay? North, south, all over the place. Who taught these folks how to make brick? And how to hey, build square buildings. So here's an interesting thing. Now, not every building was square, but most of them. They went from something that is round, which is very sacred. There's a lot of sacredness in the circle being round. Mm-hmm. And so here these natives left that tradition of being round to build square buildings. Now they had round buildings within the square buildings, but who taught them how to make brick and how to pile them up and how to stack them? Because you just don't learn that on the fly. Somebody's got to show you how to make them, how to bake the clay, how to use what kind of clay. Do you use some kind of filler with the clay to hold the clay together? I mean, I've fooled around with this stuff over the years. I got a lot of clay here, and I'm here to tell you it is not easy, even when you think you know what you're doing. So I just want to put that out there, that here are these folks who left the circular design behind to build square buildings. I've always wondered that.
Yes, that's well. See, and I want to tell you too. Now, remember we looked up the Anasazi, and those are the guys that lived in those cliff dwellings. And they were already building with stone, kind of like this, but under the cliffs, right? And with the Anasazi, they say disappeared, but literally, I think what happened is they broke off and became these other tribes in one way or another. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's probably, if you can see the cliff dwellings, it wouldn't take much for somebody to come up with the idea of, hey, let's pile one rock on top of another to make a building. And because they didn't have many trees, the obvious thing would be that you started building out of these, out of stone, because that's what you have most available, right? Now, as for the bricks and the clay, like you're talking about, actually was given to them by the Spanish. You were thinking, I guess because it's been so long, we think that these Pueblos and stuff were just, and I think I did a little talking about that last week, where the Pueblos like this, the Spanish came and taught them how to use and make bricks, and then transport the brick to make the Pueblo, right? Whereas before they were taking the stones and piling up like this and then just smearing clay on them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To hold them into place. And then when the bricks came along, they could make more uniform buildings faster, because the Spanish wanted to make these missionaries, and build the churches and things along the way. And by piling up rocks, it would have probably just taken so long. You know what I'm saying? It would have been.
Yeah, but
Um,
here's the thing. There are places like Chaco Canyon who were built long before the Spanish got there.
yes.
And so the Spanish didn't teach them how to build. Somebody else did.
Yes. No, I totally agree.
Oh, and that picture there, by the way, go back.
This one?
Yeah, zoom in.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Pretty please. Now that is the eagle dance. You see the gentleman with his back to us in the middle, and with all the white and dark feathers, that is an eagle dance.
Yep, it says right here in the bottom, eagle dance. Yes, you're right.
Well, see, I couldn't read it, but I could just tell. Hey,
you're absolutely correct.
Dave was correct.
You were correct. Yeah, absolutely correct. Absolutely. But no, you're right. They had these the cliff dwellings, and somebody showed them how to pile the rocks together and put the clay, or on there to make a solid building. And I do agree that, and then making the square walls, but I think that's human ingenuity in some way, because that happened all over the world. It's kind of like the 100 monkey syndrome, because of well, how do I want to put this? It's like, I give you a bunch of things, I give you some junk, and you're going to make whatever comes to mind because we're human. If you see something round, you're going to think, wow, look, I can make it roll. And then it becomes a wheel. You know what I mean? You're going to figure it out. Kind of like fire, did it take thousands of years for us to figure out what they could do with fire? Or did it, somebody just say, hey, look, the fire's warm. Man, I think it would only take 10 minutes for him to come up with that idea. Like, look, fire's warm. This is good. I gotta figure out how to capture this and reproduce this over and over. See, Duggar agrees with me.
Yep.
But
go ahead.
No, I'm just saying it's just human ingenuity.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, I have to greatly disagree with you on the square thing because of the eons of tradition with round. Okay.
Yeah.
And you can stack stuff up and say, well, that looks cool. But then you're going to stack them up. And here's the thing. They only stacked up those things and made them for a certain period. Right? Because then they quit doing it. Hang on. Wait a minute. Okay. If it was the 100th monkey, then why didn't the rest of the Indians pick it up? You see what I mean? So they only one tribe in one area did it. Okay. Now they might have had 100th monkey within that group, but out of that group with the rest of the Indians, except, all the way here on the East Coast, nobody picked it up.
Yes and no. I'm going to still disagree with you.
But more no than yes.
Because of where these people lived. Remember, they're in the Southwest and closer to Mexico, to the Aztecs and the Incas and all of that stuff down there, versus the natives that lived north of them, which had to keep on the move, making a teepee or a hut of some sort, or a longhouse, or vice versa, easier to build because of the materials. I mean, if you go south of these people, you would come up with, the buildings of the Aztecs, which would have been of rock, being square or pyramid or vice versa. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, but they only built them in that one particular time zone. They did not carry it forward. Okay, that's my
Yeah.
point. At that time, however many centuries ago it was, only that group of people did it. Nobody else, anywhere else, and the people from that area did not carry it forward. They stopped doing it like the elders did. So I'm just
Hmm.
saying,
Well,
it was only good for that one specific time.
that could be. That could be. I'm not just you're
No,
not
but think
throwing out.
about, just go in there and find out when the last of those were built. And they'll
Well, I
say, oh,
mean,
it was 600 years ago. So 600 years ago, they quit building them things. Okay, so why didn't they build them in that 600-year period? That's what I'm saying.
yeah, yeah. No, I don't know why.
Good or
Um,
bad, I don't know. I'm just saying they were really good at it, and then you just quit.
yeah, no, I agree. Did the climate change or did the um, did what went on there?
Did they
Something.
forget?
Yeah, that's a good question too.
Did they forget? I mean, it might have been something simple, but they quit doing it. It's like,
But see,
what?
I don't know if you'd forget, because if those buildings were still around, even if you forgot, about building them, you would still see them and then, copy them. You
Yeah,
know what
but
I'm
if
saying?
you didn't know, I know that if you're a teenager, say all the elders who knew how to do it died, and you've got a bunch of youngins coming up, and they
Yeah.
like, I I don't even know where to start, And the other guy says, well, it's a bunch of rocks. Yeah, and they try it out and go, I don't know about this, and then they just don't do it. So,
Yeah.
but something I want to say that it seems like something tragic happened, or something that was um, I don't want to say catastrophic, but it was catastrophic in the event that they didn't build like that anymore. Whatever happened, they moved, they all died. Whatever happened, it stopped, that part of their culture right then.
That is true. Remember when the white man came, 90% of their people died off before the white man actually found most of these people. Because
That's right.
remember when Coronado came and Cortez, and they brought in a bunch of diseases and things, and then for like 10 or 20 years, people, most of the natives, 90% of them died off. And that could be what you're talking about there, is this big die off. And then at that point, you say, well, there's nobody to carry on the tradition. If
Right.
all the clockmakers died and you got a clock and it breaks, you look at it and go, well, it's broken. It's junk now. I can't fix it.
Yeah,
It's
you could
pretty.
look at a clock and the innards and go, huh, that's nice, and have no idea where to start.
Yeah, I know exactly. Especially being, and where would you get the parts? You'd be like, I don't know how to make any of the parts. It's just
Right.
beyond me. The technology looks like it's so advanced. I mean, they've been
And
making clocks for hundreds of years, but even if I mean, you know what I'm saying? It would just be.
yeah, and also too, a lot of people forget, but where are the tools that they use to make them? Because if you look at all the teeth on a gear, you had to make those individual teeth with a file of some sort, and you had to
Yeah.
be very accurate. And if you've ever seen the inside of one of them old clocks, you go, what? Yeah, they
Yeah.
made. So where were the tools? And how do you use the tools to make the stuff? That's the other part.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It amazes me. It really, really amazes me with some of the stuff. I get, but no, I agree with you. It's maybe these people, and then that the thing is this happened back hundreds of years ago, and they didn't keep that great of records. And being out in the Southwest there, something that has been sitting there for 100 or 200 years may seem like centuries and centuries and centuries have gone by because people have abandoned it, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of crazy. Like I said, some of these things, and where they are, in the Arizona and New Mexico area, there ain't a lot of trees down there in certain spots in the high desert. They would be, but they make them other kind of what do they call them? Not a hut, but a oh, I can't remember what the heck they're called. I got a picture of it somewhere here. It's always a picture of it somewhere. Where is it? One of the, oh yeah, here, one of these things. See, because this is, it's mostly dirt. It's what you have. You don't have much for trees, but you do have dirt, and you got some sticks, and then you make what you have, right?
See, and that right there
is not round. I mean, it's round. It's round.
And that right there is what, for me, I would expect them to build, because of round and the dirt, and and the way it's built is into the ground, Mother Earth, and the ground is very cool and warm in the wintertime. So I mean, the fact that they knew that, and utilized what Mother Nature gave them, so I would have said, yep, they've been making that for 1,000 years, but somewhere in there they built with brick.
Well, and that's the thing too, is the Indians up north in the Dakotas and stuff were building similar items or similar houses to this, with the dirt and stuff.
And north of that into Canada, they built them also, but they were taller and bigger around, and the whole family went in,
Yes.
So yes.
But these were people that stayed in one spot, and they use these things for, like in the north, they use these in the winter. And I can see why, because they would keep out the snow and the cold much better than a teepee would. Whereas, where you got more trees, you notice from the pictures, when they have more trees in the area, they make them more out of wood and less dirt. So
yeah, but they got them logs packed with clay. You can bet.
Oh yeah. But I'm just saying is the more trees you have, the more wooden they become. Less trees you have, the more dirt they become.
Yeah, and that's also taller too.
Yes, much taller. Much taller. Let's see if I got any more pictures of this.
But the one that you showed that was made out of mud and sticks, they would dig about 2 foot deep into the dirt.
Yeah.
And so they didn't build right on the ground, they built in the ground. So that looks taller, but that other one, if you stepped into it, would probably be just as tall because they dug out the floor.
No, I totally agree that I did read about these, and so when you'd step in, there'd be a step down, and they were cut into the ground about 2 foot to keep the place cooler and stuff too in the summertime.
See, if I hadn't brought it up though, you wouldn't have told that to everybody.
No, I agree, but that's why you're my great co-host, because you know
these bring these things up. These folks weren't stupid, not by a long shot,
Well, see, here's these cliff dwellings. I finally found the cliff dwelling, but here's the cliff dwelling. They, you can see where they hauled the stones up, and then they covered this with a mud or a clay to hold the stones into place. But I'm just saying, these buildings here have been around lots longer than any of the adobe pueblos that they were building. And it wouldn't take much for one of them to see this and go, hey, I want to duplicate this. Maybe I'll, you know what I'm saying? I mean, so it's there. It's just like, if we see something, we tend to want to go out and reproduce it somewhere, even if we don't know what it is. It's one of those things, people see, they draw, then they, but I don't understand is how, what baffles me is this here picture, right? You have these people who are so primitive, they're literally carving on rock, they can bear, they're just living hand to mouth, hunter gatherers kind of thing, carving on rock, but yet they go out and they can do this. You see what I mean?
Oh yeah.
I think that's where you're coming up with some of this stuff too, is because that baffles me that this primitive people who are barely scratching the earth, are coming up and then they say, oh, let's build this city here. I know we don't have much going on, but, I got an idea. But see, even in these cliff dwellings, they're using round structures, square structures, 2-story, 3-story structures. There's a variance of different structures. They're not all square. And
windows.
And windows, yes. But again, just like these structures are, they're built kind of like the pueblos, where there's ladders to get in your house. There's no doorways down here to get in your house. They use you have to use a ladder to get where you're going. You're going to climb up a ladder to get into your door, or climb through the top, one or the other, to get in your building. Correct? Yeah. So that I can see was, copied pretty easily. I mean, if you look at these structures, they remind you of a pueblo. So I can see where somebody, even if the builders of these things all died off, somebody might have come along and said, hey, I think I can make that. And they possibly did. Just like any of these other things, like corn, growing corn. If you seen somebody growing corn and you found some seeds, you would try to imitate them growing the corn and, possibly, make your own, right?
Yeah, let me bring up something. As an example, there are contractors and builders today,
yep,
who have researched the cement that was made during the Roman times, and
yep,
that cement, after all these centuries, are still really dang strong. So
yep,
the idea, and it has taken some serious science to figure out how they did it, because we have not been able to duplicate it.
Oh, so, yeah, no, yeah.
Hang on. My point about this is that, at the time, everybody knew how to do it, and then they lost it. So, well, yeah, I feel the same is true with plaster. If you don't have that mixed right, it won't stay on the wall. The first rain will wash it off. So they had to know the secret of the plaster. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm just saying it. You just don't put mud up there and it'll stick. No, you got to add something to it. So, but anyway, but to that point, so our ancestors knew a lot, and sometimes it was passed down, like the cement in the Roman times. That formula was not, passed down, and they're like studying it for years, trying to duplicate it.
Well, yeah, that's exactly the thing. They were, I know I read an article the other day about how did the Romans build, these structures that seem to last forever, and they don't get dirty and they don't break down, and they actually get stronger with time versus, today, we build something and we got to tear it down in 50 years. And
Or it falls down.
yeah, they were one. I read the one article that was talking about how they had poured cement into the ocean to create barriers, and nobody knew how they find, were trying to figure out how did they get that cement to cure in the water? Because how, what are you gonna dig a hole? And like today they make barriers, and then you pour the cement and hardens, and then take away the barrier, and there you go. But there they were just pouring it into a thing in the ocean water. And apparently they figured out some chemical reaction that reacts with the salt water and cures the cement, and they use volcanic ash or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, amazing. But it's taken us all these years to figure this stuff out, and it's like, well, why didn't somebody pass down the recipe?
Right.
Well, so but again, did the people die off? Was it the Europe going through the Black Plague or the Black Death or whatever they had going through Europe, where like 1/3 of the population died off, or was it 2/3 of the population died off? A huge number of people died off, and was that all the workers? Was that all the people who knew things or could read a blueprint or
right? Right. I was listening to something yesterday, and it was about DeSoto. And down here, there are parks in DeSoto and Tallahassee, and DeSoto went here, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, and so, but the comment was like, oh, yeah, DeSoto came through here, and he didn't have to fight the Indians, because as they went from camp to camp to camp to camp, they killed off 2/3 of the population as they went.
Yep.
2/3 of the population was killed just because they were traveling and meeting these different tribes in their own setting.
Yeah.
So when they left, the Indians started coughing and hacking like I am, and and they killed them. 2/3 of the population.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Just by showing up. And not by war. People said, oh, DeSoto went through and killed everybody. Well, he did, but he didn't fight them.
No, he didn't. Yeah.
Well, he didn't fight them all, but you know what I mean.
No, I totally agree. And then disease and famine and stuff. I mean, these guys would go through these villages, and the word eventually started spreading. And so when, he would come through, the people would just start running for their lives, because they knew, hey, when this guy gets here, death follows him. You die, or he kills you off. He comes in like a nice guy, and by the time he leaves, he's, wiping out the tribe, taking your riches. He's looking for this, city of gold and stuff. And when you don't have it, well, he burns your village down and moves on to the next one.
Rapes your women.
Yeah. I mean, that's really what it, boils down to. If you look at this one here, yeah. See, I still think there was some Aztec, influence. Like here, this one's Montezuma's Creek. Well, Montezuma was an Aztec guy.
Right.
So, did they have some influence from here at one point? Here's Cortez, the city of Cortez. The Spanish had a lot of influence on these people too. So as the different people came through, they influenced these people more. You kind of wonder, what is their heritage in the first place, because it gets influenced by the different people coming through. You know, they bring horses that influences you to be a different kind of warrior. You know, they bring donkeys. They didn't even have donkeys. All of a sudden, you know, you got people who can travel farther, longer, you know, haul bigger loads, you know, to move your teepee or all your things, go for waters. You know, you can haul that. Look at the kids are on there, they're hauling jugs of water or something. To you, if you didn't have this, what, you gonna carry it on your back for 40 miles? I don't think so. You know, they influenced them with medals and medallions and things like that. Like this guy, you know, he's got metal pieces, and you know, he's got bullets. So he's got, you know, he's got firearms and the different clothing. You know, because back in the day, what would they have? They would have had that yucca plant to make fibers out of, or maybe some kind of cotton or something. But other than that, it would be deer hide, elk hide, buffalo hide, been leather, or nothing at all. He might have not had anything to wear. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but they did, you know, with mountain goats and stuff, they were able to use that like a wool and rub it together and make stuff with it. So they weren't entirely without, but it wasn't until they brought the sheep that they really knew how to do it. You know what I mean? But
Oh yeah,
you know, there's some woolly goats out there that they learned how to, you know, make that. But not a lot. But yeah, to that point, yes.
yeah. No, I totally
Oh,
get
and
it.
one other thing, you know, we talk about, you know, that they went through and you know, taught them things, killed a bunch of them from diseases, but nobody talks about, at least that I've heard, nobody's talked about the Spanish men who made love to or raped the women, and they
Yeah,
did. And some of them lived after they were, you know, impregnated. So there are folks in the native places who swear that their ancestry is pure. And I have questioned this over the years, like, I don't think so. And I don't mean to be rude, but I think because of rape and so forth by the Spanish, that there are a lot of native peoples who have some, maybe some pretty good Spanish descent. Now it might be washed down over a couple of generations, but if they was to check back, there. Some of them tribes have, you know, DNA that relate to the Spanish.
yes. No, I totally agree with that. Um, because of the fact that, you know, like I said, you can only go back so many generations, and of course, you're also talking about the natives and how how do I want to put this? Like, you know, we also know that the natives would go from one place to another, capture other natives, bring them back to their tribe, and make them part of their tribe, like the Apache did. You know,
Right,
they would get white people, get the children. They would get them from the Mexicans, the other natives out there, and turn them into Apaches.
right.
Well, you know that Herman Lehman, you know, if he would have stayed with that tribe, or you know, would have been a different time or something, he almost got hooked up with one of those native women, and if he would have, he might have had some kids, and at that point, you know, they would have been inbred with him, and he was of German descent. Well, you know, if times were different, you know, say it was back a little farther than what he was in, uh, those children would have just got absorbed into the tribe, and they would have had children and their children, and maybe several generations later you got a child who's got maybe some lighter skin, or maybe some lighter colored hair instead of the
Or
dark,
blue eyes.
or blue eyes. Yes, that's another thing.
Yeah. I mean, because most Native Americans are brown eyed. So you
Yes.
get any other deviation, there was something, there was something in the skunk works.
Yeah, so to say that, that all these natives were of such pure blood. Even and especially as the future rolled on, especially when the white man came through, they were taking native brides. They were, and then they would have the native bride for a while, and then they would go back to white society, leaving the native bride with the children and everything with the tribe. Well, what's going to happen with those native children? Natives don't abandon those children on the side of the road and say, well, it's a half-breed, toss them to the curb.
Well, actually, they did.
Well, either way.
Actually, there were some tribes and certain chiefs with medicine men who were like, nope, you defiled the tribe by what you have done. So you are no longer a member. And a lot of times they would tag along behind the tribe and get what little bit, they could from the sides. But not every tribe was like that. And it depended on the situation, who was the boy or the girl that was involved with something, who was the white person, or was they, Cherokee, or were they, Spanish, you know what I mean? So it depended on the circumstance, but they would literally throw them to the curb, because the Tlingit, there were 4 different clans, and depending on, boy meets girl from which clan. Well, you can meet them and go out with them, but if you have a child, they will take that child out on the ice and leave it.
Wow.
I mean, they take a newborn, say, sorry, you two are not supposed to have children together. And they would take the infant out and sit it on the, and leave it on the ice. And I know this because of Kashka LaRue, who was a legend keeper from the Tlingit, and we had traveled separately, but to the same powwows. And I knowed him over the years, and he was telling me stories. He said, people nowadays would not understand. He said, but that back then they understood genetics. You can't mate with these people over here. You can mate with this group and you can mate with that group, but not that tribe. And same with another tribe. They might be able to mate with, number 2, but they can't mate with number 3. Mm-hmm. So, and if you did and a child was born, now you could leave the tribes with the child, but if you, elected to stay with the tribes, they off with the baby to the ice.
Wow. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with you. Yeah. I believe it. I believe that. I really do. And that's the thing. It's something we don't do today. We promote. I don't even know how to put this to make it sound decent. Like today, everybody survives. Everybody can go. Who doesn't matter who you are, what color, religion. If you got anything wrong with you, back in the day, I do know that if you had a child or something was terribly wrong with it, they would, pretty much knock it in the head, and well, your kid died. But today, it's like, oh, your kid's born with 2 heads, or we'll figure out how to separate them, and then you can have 2 children almost. You know what I'm saying? Oh, you got a child who's got bad eyes or bad this or that or whatever. We can fix it. They'll be in a wheelchair the rest of their life, and you'll have to wipe the poop out of their pants. But hey, we'll fix them up. And but back then, it was like, it ain't gonna work.
Back in the late 40s and early 50s, going into the 60s too, which kind of sort of led into, in my humble opinion, abortions.
Yeah.
But if a baby was born as a mongoloid,
Yeah.
big head. Okay. Um, macrocephaly, macrocephalic. Anyway, so big head. And so they'd get one of those and they'd look down and to go, this is your child. And the mother would scream and they'd knock her out. And then um, somebody would put their hand over the child's mouth
Yeah.
and put it over in the incubator and pretend that they were taking care of it. And they'd come back later and tell the mother, "Oh, we're so sorry. Whatever your problem with your son or daughter, I'm sorry, but it's dead."
Yep.
Nobody thought 2 cents about it. All right. But
Yep.
into the 60s, then all of a sudden there are all kinds of folks with cerebral palsy trying to walk around. They're in wheelchairs. Where in the 50s, they did not allow it.
Yep.
They just killed the baby in the OR, and
Yep.
folks just like, what? Now I know this because of a professor I worked with, and she said one of the things that and she was a very religious woman. She said, what is more wrong, to have a child that is all squiggled up, ain't going to be able to walk no matter what you do for it. It's always going to be limited in a wheelchair. Now, from the grace of God, would you condemn that child to that for the rest of its life? That's cruelty.
Yeah.
That is absolute cruelty, that that child is going to have to live all scrunched up, or it's going to be a mongoloid or whatever. So it's not like you just have a bad arm, or whatever. But so back then, they realized or felt that it was less cruel to go ahead and kill the baby than it was to allow it to live. Oh, we have to save everything. Everything's got to be saved. Well, well, there's a guy out there with no legs, but he jumps around a lot and does stuff. That's amazing, but he has a brain. But if you get somebody that doesn't comprehend anything, and I used to work with these folks, so I know, you can't reach them in any way. They're not there. They can feed themselves, they can walk, they can talk a little bit, but that's it. Somebody must take care of them. Whose responsibility? And so I'm coming back around with this. Back in the old days, they saw that and said, this baby will never keep up.
Yep.
No matter what, we love it, but this baby will never keep up. It's got a bad leg. Now, there were some that they kept, but if there was something that was really wrong, they basically left it on the side of the curb. And they knew that this child, however, oh, that's cruel. You can't do that. You left the baby on the side. Yeah. But what, am I going to drag him around behind me the rest of his life? I mean, literally, I got to drag him everywhere. He's not going to be able to walk. He can't feed. If something happens, he's not going to be able to run from the enemy. So I'm sorry, but before you suffer anymore, going to leave you on the side of the road here.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Yeah, because and that's the thing now is if you have a child like that. I'm not saying anything bad about him, but it's the point is it literally ties you down for the rest. I've seen people who have a child like that and literally spend their whole life after that tied down to taking care of that child from day one.
So not only to the child is it cruel, but it's cruel to the parents to tie them down for the rest of their life, when all of their efforts are only going to be to sustain that entity. boy or girl, you know. And
Yeah.
so you say, "Oh, Dave, you're being so cruel," but hang on. You got to think about, where does this cruelty begin and end? So don't want to kill anything, but if it's bad, maybe you should.
Yeah.
No, we have to save everything. Maybe not.
I
Without
know.
being cruel. Without
Well, see
being
that.
cruel.
Well, that's the thing. When society goes from being, your everyday life is trying to survive from one day to the next, to this life we have now, where we have so much technology and we're so rich, and we have food and water and shelter, and we have more time than we know what to do with in retrospect, kind of. um, we tend to try to, you know uh, like you said, save everything, and cure everything, hurry up and we'll feed everyone. But the reality is, if the system collapses, we go back to, like you said, leaving them on the side of the road, knocking them in the head or whatever you got to do, because it's going to tie those people down. They're going to, can you imagine going out west and you're pushing your child in a wheelchair the whole way because, well, I can't do it. They're like, whatever. The Indians are going to get both of you then. You're all going to die. You know what I mean?
Right. But
You're not.
back then with polio and things, that did happen. There were signs of wheelchairs on the back of a prairie schooner. Can
Yeah.
you still see me?
Yes.
My screen froze here. Okay.
Yeah, it goes here too,
So
but
there
it's all right.
were wheelchairs, that they found on the side of the Oregon Trail, and
Yeah.
so there were old people who went, and there were some crippled folks that went. So it wasn't like it never happened, but to the point though, if a child was really bad off and they knew it was never going to be anything, somebody was like, Miss Jones, let me have your child, please. And they would just go
Yeah.
over on the outside of the thing, and there wouldn't be any crying or nothing. It would just be over.
Mhm.
And they'd bury the child, and that'd be that. And it was sad, and everybody on the wagon train was sad, but that was that. It was a healthy baby. Everybody cooed, and everybody came around and helped. And so, and it wasn't everybody that, oh, let's go kill the baby. No. And I'm not. And the person who did it, they were always in remorse. I had to quiet a young child today, was how they would phrase it.
Yeah.
I had to quiet, I had to kill
Yeah.
a baby today. No, I had to quiet a baby today, and it was sad. And the funeral, well, wait a minute, what do you mean quiet? Killed. But so anyway, and I'm not suggesting that we start, doing things, but here's the thing. There are so many children who are being born these days with multiple issues, crippled, their brain ain't working and other stuff. And you ought to seriously think, do I want to condemn this entity, this child, to a lifetime of a wheelchair and never? What is the point? I mean, honestly, ask Jesus and say, would you allow this to happen? Would you allow this entity to live like this and suffer for the rest of its life, however long it is? Or would you just say, okay, God, take him now?
Yep.
Or
No,
would
I
you
agree.
allow this suffering? And so my friend, the professor, she was against the suffering. So people said, but Willa, you mean you want to kill all these babies? If it means a lifetime of suffering, take them out. And they were, to this day, she's been gone 40 years. But to this point, I still wondered, was she right?
Yeah. Yeah. It really does make you wonder. Like I said, with the technology we have, there it's, I guess it's for the money too. I mean, think about how much, hospitals and caregivers are making off of all of that stuff. I watched this, no, I didn't watch it. I listened to this audiobook called 30 Seconds After. Or was it 30 Seconds After? Or something, 1 second after. Maybe it was called 1 second after. It was a story about what if the event happened, and there was an EMP and everybody was stranded and so forth and so on. Well, they were talking about all the nursing homes and stuff, all the people passing away, and all the diabetics not having their insulin, and within a few months they would all be gone. And the one guy,
within a couple of weeks, they'd all be gone.
Yeah, well, the one guy, he managed to scrape up a bunch of insulin for his daughter and keep it cold in the toilet water and stuff like that. And she lasted a long time. And then when the military finally came in, she just passed away, or maybe she was still alive. And he gets the military guy and he says, do you have any insulin? I'm almost out of insulin for my daughter. And the guy says, insulin? What do you mean? All those diabetic people have died off a long time ago. You mean your daughter still got insulin? And she's still, wow, we don't even have that kind of medical supplies anymore because nobody needs it. I mean,
because the people who did need it are dead.
That's right. So when you lose your your group of people who need it, you don't make it anymore. Why? They're all gone. There's no need to make it. And of course, eventually, within a couple pages after that, she passed away because she was right on the verge of, the end of her medicine, and so that was the end of it. Sorry to spoil the thing, but go watch it yourself 1 second after. So there you go.
And that's like I learned about almost 2 years ago now about my metropol. I cannot be without it more than a day and a half, 2 days, because my heart will go flutter, and I will have a heart attack, and I will be in really bad shape because I have been to the ER with that condition before. So if an EMP strikes and I run out of metropol, now I could cut my dosage down to try to keep some in my system. But once that bottle ran out, that'd be that. Then I'd be up to the natural whatevers, and by the grace of the Creator. But if it happened like it did 2 years ago, I would highly likely be dead.
Yeah, you might not make it very long. Yeah, no, I anyway.
And I'm not trying to be gruesome or anything. That's a fact.
Yep.
I found out the hard way. Don't run out of this one,
Yeah. All right. Well, here, let's go for story time before use up the whole hour talking about this.
Oh, goodness gracious. It's 11:22. Oh, my goodness gracious. Let me get a
drink and off you go. I think I got the right page.
Yep, you do. And my apologies, ladies and gentlemen, hobos and tramps, cross-eyed mosquitoes, and bow-legged ants, that I have some kind of cold respiratory thing. And if I start coughing in the middle of this, I apologize. And I probably will. Let's see. Wait a minute. I'm going to take a cough drop now and try to keep my throat from being yucky. So, yay, story time. Yeah, so I gotta switch screens here. Where I got, you're good. I have to switch to where my story is. There it is.
Oh, Oh, yeah,
Okay,
okay.
so we are still using the story, the book. This is my intro. This is The Traditions of the Hopi by H.R. Voth, 1905. So we're looking at, 120 years ago, more or less. And this is chapter number 5 in the book, as we usually go in succession. And the name of this story is The Origin of Some Oriabi Clans. Away down the Sipapu, in the underworld, the people lived in the same manner as they do here. The wife of the chief of the Bear Clan often danced in the butterfly dance, the Polihitkivi, at which the chief got angry. The Spider Clan had also a chief. The Bear Chief sent the Poomkong to hunt for them another life, Katsi, or a world, and see whether they could not get out. He was so angry at his wife's participating in the dance, fearing that she would be led astray, that he wanted to go away and leave her. Pukong and his younger brother, Balungahoya, went in search of another world, and when they returned, reported that there was an opening right above them. Pukong had reached it by means of a reed on which he had spit and thus made it strong. The chief said, as they were still dancing the butterfly dance, they would move in 4 days. After 4 days, they were still dancing, and the chief said to someone that he would not tell his wife anything, but try to find another wife. So he left, being accompanied by Pukong and Balaungayahoya, the Polis, still dancing wildly. They started and went out. Pukong first, and then Balungayahoya, and then the Bear Clan chief, who was followed by the Spider Clan chief. Then the Bear Clan people, the Spider Clan people, and after them, many other people came out. When many were out, the Bear Chief closed the opening. When they were out, the chief said, "Well, what now?" They were in the dark yet, the entrance, however, being closed. The chief sent the eagle, who flew around hunting an opening or light. He returned, and the chief asked, "Taum Hinawoti." "Well, I found an opening and made it more light, but it is very hot high up yet. Send another one." So the chief sent the buzzard, Wikoko. The latter ascended higher but got burned. Hence, he has no feathers on his head and wings, but he made it higher. When he returned, the chief said, "Thank you. Well, what now?" "Now it is somewhat better. The sky has been opened somewhat more, and it is much lighter." the question arose, which way? The Bear Clan spoke for the south, the Spider Clan for the north, and the latter, talking more and getting the greater crowd, the Spider Clan went northward. This clan traveled northward, the chief first, the people following. After 4 nights, they came to a nice country where the North Old Man, Quinne Uhataka, lives. But it was cold there. The chief decided that they would stay. So the people were glad and began to plant corn, watermelon, melons, sweet corn, and etc. The chief had brought with him the colt and the altar of the blue flutes. When the corn began to grow, the chief put up his altar, sang and fluted. But he did all that alone. So the corn, etc., grew nicely, but when it tasseled and the ears began to develop, it became cold, and the crop was destroyed. Ishohi! Oh, the people exclaimed. They tried it another year, but the same thing was repeated in every respect. Again, no crop. Another year it was tried, but now the corn only began to tassel, and the 4th year it was still very small when the frost killed it. Then there was dissatisfaction. Ishohi! Oh, our father, you have spoken falsely. You said it was good here. So they all also started southward after the bear people. After the first night, the chief said to his wife, "You bathe yourself." This she did in warm water. Then she rubbed her body and collected the small scales which she had rubbed from her skin and handed them to her husband. He laid them on a blanket until there was a considerable quantity of them. He then wrapped this in a reed receptacle, sang over it, and waved it 4 times, whereupon the scales turned into burrows and rushed out. "What is that?" the people asked. "Those are burrows," the chief said. So they were glad that now they would not have to carry everything themselves, not any longer. And the chief said that now they would move on towards the rising sun. The chief and his wife repeated the same performance, but instead of burrows, Spaniards came out. To them the chief said, "You put supplies and your things on the burrows and follow the other Hopi, that is, the Bear Clan. And when you overtake them, kill them." So the Castilians went south and the Spider people went southeast, following a stream, Noniopaya, a rolling stream because of the high recoiling waves. They came to a nice place where they stayed 1 year and planted and reaped a crop. From there they proceeded southeast, stopped another year at a certain place where they again planted, but were harassed by enemies. They saved a portion of the crop, and proceeding farther southeast, they ascended a bluff or a mesa, staying another year and planting in the valleys. Thus they stopped in all at 10 different places. But being constantly harassed by the people along the water, They never planted more than once. Finally, they arrived where the sun rises and the Americans, Bahanas, live. With them, they became friends. Here they planted. Their children learned the language a little, and they stayed there 3 years. They also here learned that the Bear Clan had been there and had already gone westward again. The Spider people followed, arrived at Oriabi, where they found the Bear Clan, whom they joined. Their chief was then Mashito. They also had the Eototo and Eoholi Kachinas, the Bear Clan. This clan had gone south from the Sipahampuni. They had with them the Atoto Kachina. They soon found the young corn ear, Pikash people, with the Aholi Kachina, who wanted to join them. So the Bear Clan chief took them along. They stopped at a place and here had a good crop because they had the two Kachinas with them. The next year, they came to a clear stream. In all, they stopped 10 times before arriving at the Americans, where the sun rises. Here they stopped 4 years. Their children learned a little English. The land being scarce, the Americans told them to go west and hunt land for themselves. And if anybody would be bad to them, Nukpana, and cause their children to die, they, the Americans, would come and cut the Nukpana's heads off. This was told them because they, the Americans, had been told that down in the old home there had been Papwaktu, sorcerers. So they traveled westward, found the Pueblo, but no good land that they could get. So they finally arrived at Shungopavi, where some people lived, and there they settled down. One time the people saw that the chief, Mashito, held a sweet corn ear between every 2 fingers, at the time eating from the other hand. Corn was very scarce at that time, so the people spoke to him about his greediness, at which he got angry and left, taking with him the Atoto and Aholi. Hunters later found them at a rock, now bean spreading place, Bapu Moyapani, where there is still a stone on which there is some writing called Mashitubiine. Mashito left his wife at Shungopavi, also his people, who then formed the Shungopavi Bear Clan. When the hunters found him, they informed the people at Shungopavi. Some went there to get them back, but Mashito would not listen to them. Then his wife went to him, but he would not listen to her either. So they left him. Mashito took a big stone and went with them for some distance to make the landmark between Oriabi and Shungopavi. The people said several times, "Put it here," but he would not listen until arriving at a place called Okapochomo, where he placed it, thus making a landmark between the fields of the Shungopavi and his own. Then Mashito and the two Kachinas went up the Orbi Mesa, where they remained. Later, the spider people arrived. Mashito asked about their wanderings, and they told him. He wanted to know why the corn would not grow, although they had a flute cult. The spider clan chief accused the North Old Man. Mashito then said, "All right, you may live here, but as your cult does not seem to be effective, you watch the sun for me, and when he has arrived at his south limit, you tell me, and we shall have the Soyal ceremony. Also, your Putabi does not seem to have been good, so I want you to make my kind of Putabi." After the matter had been settled between Mashito and the Spider Clan chief, the latter's people came up. Among these were also the Lizard Clan, to which the Sand Clan was related. These names were given to people while wandering. One would find and see something, perhaps under peculiar circumstances, and be called after it. The lizard people were also asked what they knew, and when they said the Maru cult, they were also permitted to stay, but were requested to cooperate in the Soyal ceremony. For that reason, Pungna Osomi Si, who is of the Bear Clan and the village chief, now makes the Puhu road in the night of the Marau ceremony from the Nazi at the south end of the Kiva towards the rising sun. The rattlesnake of the Tuok clan also came with the Spider Clan to Oriabi, but it is not known how or where this clan became a part of the Spider Clan. The Badger people understand medicines, hence they prepare the medicine, for instance, charm liquid for the flute, snake, marau, and other ceremonies. Another Badger clan and the Butterfly Puwal came from the Kishawu. These brought the Pawamu and the Kachina cult. The Divided Spring Batki clan came from where the sun rises. They came to the village of Orabi and arranged a contest at Mayuvaki, where each planted corn. The blue flutes, sweet corn. The others, Upakayo, over which they played the whole day. The sweet corn grew first, and so the blue flutes to this day go to the village in the processions and etc. First closing the well, the Bakni, on the plaza. Later, the drab flutes, the Masitalantu, had to throw their meal, molas and etc., from a distance to the warrior Kelhetaka of the Kakwalantu, who put them into the well in the booth for them. Thus ends chapter 5. The next chapter for next week is the snake myth. And that's how we're going to end the storytelling for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. And that was from the Traditions of the Hopi from H.R. Voth. Remember, that was in 1905. And these stories were retold to him. So he was able to write them down. And I'm able to read them to you tonight.
Yep. Good deal. Just in time, too. I'm sorry I messed up on some of that. I had a work call. Work calls are work calls. So anyway, we got some cards for tonight. I imagine we do.
Yeah, well, I'm pulling them up. Let's see what happens.
All right. Oh, yeah, it's been a busy night. Let me get my stuff together.
I got a lot of stuff in my chest, too. All right, let me shuffle these once or twice. All right, everybody. I don't know what kind of message you want. I remember the last one, though, was kind of short and sweet, but it was appropriate. I can't remember what the cards were, but I was like, man, them cards lined right up. So I'm always amazed when the cards line up, meaning that, at the end of it all, they seem to all relate. That's what I mean. Okay, so think your thoughts, and here I go looking for cards. All right, I think we got our first one.
Okay.
Our first one is elk.
Okay.
And we had that recently. I'm not sure if this is right side up or not. I
think last week.
I think it's
almost.
Yeah, I didn't do cards last week
before.
I couldn't talk.
Oh yeah, that's right. No, it must have been the week before that. All right, that was.
I have shuffled these cards, and I never look at them. I'm looking down on them, and I only look at them from my fingertips point of view. So, a repeat? Frog.
What? Frog.
Number 38. Yeah, it was like, wait a minute, wasn't that in? Wow, this is weird. Frog is cleansing. We know that. Elk is stamina. Oh, here's one we haven't had in a long time.
Okay.
Ant.
Ant.
Ant. I think is patience.
Nice. Yep. Hard work. Patience. Working together. When's that frog? I love it.
And turkey.
Cards. Turkey. We haven't had turkey in a while.
Yeah, and then turkey's upside down. Number 31. And to round out the cards tonight is moose. Upside down.
Moose. I love moose. Oops.
Number 11. I know we've had elk, 2 weeks ago, I think. We should write down the cards, elk, so we can kind of compare, like, well, last week we had, never mind. Okay, yeah. So here are our cards. Let me get the book. I spilled coffee on it the last time, and all the pages were stuck together. It was really horrible.
I like the moose.
The moose is loose. So, number 3, the first one up is the elk. And it is straight up. I was right. Elk is stamina. So elk was being chased by a mountain lion. And the mountain lion, in fact, I saw something just yesterday, actually, about an elk being chased by a pack of wolves. and the elk got to a river, a stream, and stood in the middle of it. And the wolves, and it ice and snow, so the wolves just stood at the edge of the water and didn't do anything, while the elk stood right in the middle of the water, like waiting on them, you know. But so the elk is stamina. So when the elk is being chased, the elk can go up into the high country and keep running, where the panther or the mountain lion will just flat give out. So elk medicine teaches that pacing yourself will increase your stamina. Elk medicine people may not be the first ones to arrive at a place, but they always arrive without getting burned out. If you have taken on too much recently, it might be a good idea to look at how you plan to finish whatever it is you're doing. So, what you have started without ending up in the hospital. So, elk have a curious kind of warrior energy because, except at a mating time, they honor the company of their own gender. So, elk could be telling you to look at how you are holding up physically. So, there's the thing. How you're holding up physically and mentally to the stresses in your life, and whether or not you've learned to pace yourself so that you can maintain an equilibrium of energy over the distance of your life. So which means sometimes you just got to sit down and, have a power bar and think about it for a minute before you go on. But so stamina has to do with, what was that? I was on the other side. Pacing yourself. So are you pacing yourself in life? Frog is number 38, and I'm pretty sure that's got to do with the cleansing this thing. Yep, cleansing. Now, frog's upside down. Frog sings the songs that bring the rain and make the dirt road more bearable. Frog medicine is akin to water energy and the east on the medicine wheel. Frog teaches us to honor our tears, for they cleanse the soul. All water rights belong to Frog, including all initiations by water. So upside down, Frog slipped in the mud, lying on his back, wriggling around. Get ready for more mud in your eye. The contrary position of Frog can denote an unwillingness on your part to wipe the mire out of your life. Some people just like to waller in a mess. Mud can turn from mire to bog to quicksand if you don't recognize its effect on your present situation. Is someone draining your energy? Is something draining your energy? Are you allowing yourself to ride down the tubes with them? At times, all of life's activities can be overwhelming. That's true. And everyone occasionally needs a break. Now, here's Elk, who talks about pacing yourself to gain stamina. And here's Frog saying, at times, life's activities can be overwhelming and everyone occasionally needs a break. So there's two cards side by side that are pushing in that same direction. Contrary Frog can signal one of these moments, but it could also portend a time of feeling waterlogged. Maybe you can't keep away from the mountain lion because you got rocks in your pockets. You know what I mean? So negativity is drawn to you when you refuse to give yourself the time and space needed to assume a new viewpoint. So elk's running up the mountain trying to get away from the mountain lion, and frog's upside down in the mud. And so if you don't stop and smell the lily pads, eat some flies and bask in the sun, and ribbit until the rain comes to refill your spirit. So be careful. There's stamina, and you got to rebuild your energy. That's two. Right on, right on. Okay, page 32, or number 32, is ant. An ant is right side up, and I was right about that. Ant is patience. So that's interesting because I was mentioning patience earlier on in our little foray tonight. I was talking about actually at the beginning that when folks need to have more patience and they need to just wait and see how things are going to come out. So, but here's ant with patience. Ant can carry a leaf for hundreds of miles just to get it back to the anthill. Every ant in an anthill is part of the ant group mind, as all the ants work for the queen and the hive. Self-sacrifice is a part of ant medicine. Greater than ants' other medicines, however, is patience. Ant people are active, community-minded folks who see the greater future needs of their own. So this is talking about being able to put the future needs of others in line instead of your own personal, okay? But you're going to need stamina, and you're going to need to get yourself right in order, but you need to have patience. Sounds like something's coming up. Patience does have its rewards. Ant people have a knowing about the sweet victory at the end of the line. If you have ant medicine, you eat slowly and deliberately and are content in knowing that what is yours will come to you. This knowing is a good medicine. It shows a trust in the universe to provide for you. Do you trust the universe? Do you trust the creator? And so Ant is saying have patience, because in all things, when it comes, you'll come to you. Ant is working for the good of the whole. Are you? If you are, be assured that the whole wants the same goodness for you, and that it will be provided. How about that one? Ant. Turkey. Turkey is giveaway number 31. Wow, they were side by side, 32, 31. Okie dokie. Let's see it. Yep, giveaway. Turkey is actually thought to be the giveaway eagle, or the South Eagle of many native peoples. The philosophy of giveaway was practiced by many tribes. Simply stated, it is the deep and abiding recognition of the sacrifices of both self and others. People in modern day society who have many more things than they need should study the noble turkey who sacrifices itself so that we may live. In turkey's death, we have our life. Honor turkey. Turkey's upside down. There are several aspects to pulling the gobbler card on the reverse position. Are you gobbling up anything and everything out of fear? Are you holding on too tight and refusing to let go of a dime for charity? It could be that the Scrooge in you has grown unaccustomed to the miserly aspect of living. If not, you might look at the possibility that you are fearful of spending money at this time. And that would be true. Stock market going crazy, people going nuts. Have patience. The buck stops here may only mean that it stops in your bank account. On all levels of this contrary message, the keynote is that generosity of spirit is being neglected. They want me to read this again. On all levels of this contrary message, the keynote is that generosity of spirit is being neglected. This can be towards yourself or maybe towards others. Remember, never give to receive. That is manipulation. Giving is without regret and with a joyful heart, or the giveaway has lost its true meaning. So now you've got, stamina with the elk. You've got Frog that's laying on his back trying to get up and cleanse himself to get right. Ant saying, have patience with what's coming and don't be scared. And Turkey is basically saying, are you scared of what's going on? But in that, you still need to understand generosity and honor the turkey in the giveaway. Now, Moose is number 11, upside down. So the interesting message. Oops. Moose is self-esteem and upside down. Moose is found in the north of the medicine wheel, as is the buffalo. North represents the place of wisdom. All right, so now you've got these cards. Stamina, the cleansing of self, and the ant meaning patience, turkey with the giveaway, and now Moose is saying, self-esteem, the place of wisdom. Self-esteem is the medicine of Moose because it represents the power of recognizing that wisdom has been used in a situation that recognition or a pat on the back is deserved. But it's the wisdom. So with all of these cards, and at the end they're saying, hey, be careful with the wisdom. And wisdom's out there for us to learn. If Moose is upside down when you draw it, you are being reminded that ego can ruin your sense of accomplishment. Remember that others have the same potential that you have. And do not become careless in your appreciation of their gifts. Now, appreciation of their gifts, and turkey's right behind with the giveaway. Reverse Moose implies that in tooting your own horn, you have failed to be interested in others. Interesting. And that therefore forgotten that everyone teaches everyone else in some way. Everybody teaches each other some way. Well, I hate that person. Why? You still learn something. You're still being taught. Contrary Moose medicine may be asking you to grow quietly for a while, to calm your spirit. Whoops, there's Frog. To calm your spirit and allow the strength, there's the help, and the wisdom of silence to enter your heart. That sounds like ant with patience. You understand? This is the core of Moose medicine, knowing the wisdom of silence. And that, in a way, would be the giveaway with the turkey. So that when it is proper to speak, you can take pride in your words. And thus spoke the animal cards for this week. How about them apples? So I hope that means something to you. I hope that you can keep your stamina and, and keep your spirit clean and get out of the mud if you're keep, digging around in the mire all the time. And Ant with patience, that just keeps coming up to me. And I brought it up before I ever pulled the card. So, my dear friends, gather the stamina of the elk and be patient. And Moose will show you the wisdom. So, and honor the turkey. Thank you.
Yeah.
Honor the giveaway.
Yep.
What
Sounds.
do you think? Is that a good message? Bad message? What do you think?
I think it's good. I think that's the message we need for today. Because, hey, I mean, with the world the way it is, you gotta have some patience. You gotta, be like Frog and clean yourself up and Turkey and. This is, you just got to wait for things to happen and be prepared. Isn't that right?
And you obviously got to have some stamina,
Stamina. Yes, exactly. The stamina to get through all of whatever's coming, because, there's so many people that just freak out and do weird and stupid stuff when they don't really need to.
Yeah. And sometimes that's when you need to just sit down on a rock and wait.
Yeah.
I mean, very simply, what should I do? Sit down, take a smoke break if you smoke, get yourself a drink of water or whatever, and just sit down and just chill. And sometimes by doing so, a lot of times the wisdom will come to you like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit here and smoke this cigarette. Next thing you know, it's like, man, maybe I could do something to fix that wagon, and the next thing you know, you've got an idea.
Yep.
But if you keep going and you don't give yourself that time to just relax a second, that idea will just pass you right on down the road and you'll miss it.
That is so true. That is so true.
So how we do, Boss Man?
We did real good. Remember, everybody. Yeah, pretty much on the money here. Remember, everybody, to go over to Nina's channel or Nina's StreamYard thing. The link is in the pinned comment, and get your Milky Way Soul Tribe shirts and mugs and things like that. I'll try to pin it here in a second. Yeah, it's right here, and and get over there and get your stuff. It's going to be for, like always, a limited time, and kind of get my smiling mug on your mug. Get it? My mug on your mug. Anyway,
mug on a mug.
Well, with that, get my mug on your mug. Scotty Boy says, show after. You having a show?
I'm gonna try it.
Gonna try. Okay, there you go, Scotty Boy. Join him over there. Let's see. Well, somebody else is saying something here. Thanks, Susie Q. Thank you, everybody. Big Dad standing tall. Thank you for being here tonight, Susie Q and Chloe. I do want to send out my condolences. We found out today, thanks to Heather, Lady Spellbreaker, as you all know her, for letting us know that our friend from the past, long time ago, we'll probably have a little tribute to him. David Castle had passed away this summer, and we didn't even know about it. So,
really? Is that what happened?
Yeah. Sometime in July. So sorry to hear that. I mean, we were so all concerned about Dalibor when he passed away. We forgot we didn't even hear about David Castle, but I don't know what he died from or, whatever happened, but it was somewhere along the line. So anyway, I got a work call coming, so I'm going to say adios, everybody, and remember, go out and do something nice for somebody else and yourself and be the frequency you want to receive, everyone. Love you all. Peace, everybody.
Peace.